Yam TV. Press play.
Welcome to Yam TV. Today I'm privileged to be chairing a discussion cross fellowships with the presence of Beulah Apostolic, Bethel Apostolic, and today we're based in Bethel Apostolic Derby. And we thank God for an open door here that we can come and have this discussion. Today I've got to my right Jay Livingstone. I got to my left Sister Kay Dawkins. Is it minister yet? Missionary? Evangelist? Minister Kay? Praise the Lord. Wonderful. And I have to my left also Brother Michael Mullings, and he is the chair for YAM. I am what they call the executive elder. Now someone has said to me, what does that mean? It just means that I am the senior point of escalation for this organization, mentoring the young men involved. And so I'm grateful to be here. There's something really unique about us all in the room. I didn't think about it before we got together, but we are all pastors' children. And today we're going to go for a number of topics, and I'm going to start with this one of being pastors' children. Advantages, disadvantages, what are they? Who wants to kick us off?
Jay.
To my right.
Well, of course, we already said, the main advantage is, you're at the pastor's table, man. The chicken's good. The chicken's nice. I would say one of the main advantages I've experienced is that you're constantly under the dropping of the word. And I didn't realize until my own, well, not even my own ministry, but until God began to minister through me as I got older, and I began to realize, that there were parts of the word that I knew, but I didn't realize I knew. And there were areas that I had knowledge and wisdom in, but I didn't study it, I didn't revise it, and all of this. A lot of it comes from, being around when your parents are ministering, or being around when your parents are discussing certain things. My parents used to talk in code, but after a while I figured out how to, decipher that code, figure out what's really going on. And as a result, you learn a lot, and it helps. For me, it helped me in life, because it meant a lot of stuff I didn't necessarily need to take to my parents, because I'd already heard them discussing it.
Right.
So I kind of figured out, okay, this is the avenue that I ought to be taking. Some things I knew, okay, this I need to take into prayer and fasting. If I have an issue with a person, I knew, okay, rather than talking to so-and-so about it, why don't I go directly to the person and settle that? So yeah, one of the major advantages is that you learn. Essentially, you're being pastored without being pastored. Right. Your pastor is able to pastor you whilst pastoring other people. So yeah, that for me was always a major advantage.
Did you feel any different from other young people or children in church, or were you made to feel different?
Always. There was one particular instance at the convention centre, big building in West Bromwich. We used to all play outside. The choir would be singing, we're outside playing. Preachers preaching, we're outside playing. But there was this thing wherein the ushers would come out and everyone would scatter. And you found that there were some who, the usher would come up to them and they'll be like, yeah, this is cool, this is fine. If they go to my parents aren't going to do anything. However, when they came to me, it was like, and you should know better, because you're pastor so-and-so's son, and you're evangelist so-and-so's son, and your granddad is this. And I'm like, okay, I know my family. I don't really need you to recite my family tree. But yeah, there were a lot of instances where you were made to feel different, and you're made to feel like, you're supposed to be up here when everyone else is up here, when really, you're actually still a child. Yeah, you're a pastor's child, but essentially you're still a child.
Did you ever catch yourself acting differently, or did you ever catch yourself being more high-minded, who's that person, they're not even minister? Did you ever have to challenge those feelings, or?
Yeah, that got humbled real quick. It particularly happened when my dad was ministering at a different church. So I'll get there and I'll be like, I'm the guest speaker's son. I'm something. So I'll wear my jacket a bit more crisp than usual. It was little mannerisms that most people wouldn't have noticed, but for me it made me feel crisp, made me feel brilliant. But yeah, that got humbled very quickly. Because it got to a point where God began to deal with me on an individual level.
Right.
So this kind of relates to one of the disadvantages of being a pastor's kid. And for a while, you end up following the God of your parents. And you know the God of your parents. You know when your parents pray, something happens. You know when your parents fast, something happens, but you don't necessarily know God for yourself.
Right.
So that aspect of me wherein, you know, I was made to feel crisp when I was visiting other churches, that got humbled when I began to know God for myself.
Right.
When I began to experience Him for myself. Because then I realised, well, actually, before you, I am nothing. It was similar to the Isaiah experience. It wasn't like, you know, in the year someone died, I saw the Lord. No. It was more when you come in contact with God, you realise your stature in comparison to Him.
Right, brilliant. Thank you for that. Sister Kay, I know you come from maybe a smaller church experience, but you're very much active and working and leading that ministry now. What was your journey from just being the pastor's daughter, and what do you feel was good and bad about that? Without too much detail.
I wasn't always a pastor's daughter because my parents, my mum was an evangelist, my dad was a minister, and then eventually worked up the ranks. But one thing outside of a disadvantage is that I found, because of that pressure of you are prominent person's child and your parents are in leadership and so on, there was this thing for me where it brought on the need to pretend. And I found and still find nowadays with some pastors' children is that there is this real thing of we have to pretend. Because I don't want to let the side down. I don't want to let the family name down. I don't want to let the church down. And there's that pressure of you have to keep the standard because, as Jay said, you are pastor so-and-so's son, daughter. And for me, it was about learnt behaviour. I monkey see, monkey do kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And, I saw it, I did it. And it got to a point where I actually felt like I'm losing my mind here. Like, I just couldn't function anymore with the pretense because I knew who I was on Sunday and I was a completely different person Monday to Friday at school, and then Saturday I was preparing to be the Sunday person again. And I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't manage the pretense and the pressure of being, the shining star.
Did you always have to give a testimony?
Listen to me. Testimony. That, to this day, has been a traumatic experience for me because I remember one time, and I've discussed this with my dad, so I'm not putting him out there, but we were in church one Sunday and testimony service was going on, and my mum said to me, "Okay, you need to testify." I said, "I ain't got nothing to testify about because I'm living their life. What have I got to testify about?" But, every Sunday you make your little testimony, you put it together, and you get it out the way. Box tick. And this Sunday I decided, no, I'm not testifying. And my dad was leading the service. And everybody testified. He waited till the end of the service and he said, "So, Sister Kay, you don't have no testimony?" So I was like, "No." He goes, "You are not going to stay here and can't testify. Give your testimony." And I said, the shame and embarrassment that licked me. I stood up to testify and pure bawling came out. Ooh. And I was like... Now, from his point of view, is that he's training me that I need to do what is right in the house of God. And his thing was, I'm not going to sit down here. You're not going to sit down here on my watch and be a dummy. His words, not mine. Right? And that experience did one of two things. I respected his stand because he lived at home what he lived in church. Right. And so what he did in church is nothing that he wouldn't do at home. So I respected the stand because one thing with my parents is that they lived at home what we live in church. Right. They don't say we don't allow on the pulpit and then allow it through the front door at home. Right. I didn't have that privilege. It's a privilege. But it also showed me that, there's such a pressure to conform and to be seen to be doing the right thing as the pastor's child and, following in the footsteps and so on. Yeah. And I got to a place and I said to God at 16, I said, "You know what, God, you ever saved me for real? I'm going back my business." I was baptized at 12, filled at 14. But at 16, I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't care who don't like it. And as I explained about my dad, that wouldn't have been an easy exit. But I was like, no, I don't business. I'm gone. And I don't know when it happened, but all I know is that was one of the most genuine prayers of my life. And God heard it and answered it. And from that moment on, I was a changed person. And that's when I started to really know God for myself. But then the good thing about being raised the way I was is that it was the underpinning and foundation for everything that I am doing and have become by the grace of God.
Yes.
The foundation and the grounding. Like people say to me, oh my God, like even something simple like, we're singing a song in church and say, we'll sing number whatever from the Pentecostal hymnal. I don't have to pick up the hymnal because that's in there. I just really love singing, and that may be a simple thing, but because you're so steeped in it, it becomes a part of you and it becomes in your bones. And I think that's a good thing, especially for this generation. And trust me, it's given me staying power. I might be young, but one thing, I've tried my best to be sober and I don't want to be anything that, I'm putting out there an image, but I'm not living it. And that's what it's helped me to be. I
think as children, we don't always appreciate what we're getting at the time, what God's planting in our spirit. I always felt there's this inevitability about the pastor's child. And even if you speak to my brothers today who are not in church, if you say, are you going to get saved? It'll be like, yes, at some point, there's this sense that I do have to serve God based on the way I was raised. It's just you've seen too much and you know too much. And I think that's our experience, is that we learned from our parents that God was actually real. And we're not going to become Muslims tomorrow. We're not going after Hinduism. And we're certainly not playing with devils and demons and spiritism, right? Because we grew up knowing what the church was. And I think I'm really grateful for that. Michael, I'm going to go to you now. I know we've got similar experiences, but because our parents were prolific in terms of having children over many generations, I think actually your experience is going to be different from our older brothers and sisters. Our father was a very missionary father, spent most of the time away. But just speak to that a little bit, because sometimes I think we don't realize how weird our lives are until we see other people's. We don't, and you're not actually necessarily satisfied with the stuff you don't have until you realize that other people have more time with their dad or something like that. Or you see your dad. So I'm interested to hear what your take is, being child number 7, and I was number 6. So what's your take?
Well, on an advantage side, I would say, as you say, you don't understand certain things until you reach a certain age, and so I was baptized at 5. That's like 26 years ago now. But got saved at 23, I think, or 24.
He was a convincing 5-year-old.
But the thing is, I would say that at 5, I had a stronger relationship with God at 5 than I did at any other time since, because I didn't really develop a relationship. And what Jay said about knowing the God of your parents, I mean, unless you have one of those serious child ministries where you're, I don't know, a preacher from 6 or 7, I didn't really develop the relationship with God, but the experience I had at 5 was enough to let me know that when I did get to a stage of, it was like, okay, is it suicide or is it, let's try this Jesus thing for real? What I had seen in the home and what I had experienced for God of myself, the experience I had at 5 let me know this is something to try because he is real.
Let me just push you on something. Were you baptized, in your opinion, too early?
No, because I believe at 5 I was more genuine than at any other point.
Wow.
After that, until I got filled, and one of the biggest things, like you say, your parents lived what they lived at home, what they did in church. One of the things that let me know that this Jesus guy was real, other than my experience when I was 5, because that's really all I had to hold on to, was examples of the love of God. So my parents would love people who I thought were just stupid. Like, why would you even love this person? Example, my dad is going away to Cameroon for a 2-week mission, and he goes down to church. He sees this pregnant girl outside there. He brings her home. At that time, the house is full. His niece from Jamaica is staying there. He leaves the girl in the house and goes on the mission the same day, and that girl ends up sleeping in the same bed as my cousin who's over from Jamaica and stays in the house for like 6 or 7 months. So he's gone on mission and left that woman with my mum. It was a cousin with Joseph, with me in the house, and that's it. And I've seen multiple situations where that don't make sense. So when I'm going through my own life struggles, now I'm thinking, But I have this example of stuff that don't make sense, and I've heard enough in church to know that that can only be the love of God. I've seen the disrespect they've had to go through. They've given their lives for people, and people turn around and slap them in the face, metaphorically, and they still love them. And I'm like, that is unnatural. And so that, for me, the biggest advantage was they gave me an understanding of, you need to know this God for yourself, and you need to try. So when it came to the toughest decision points, I'm like, I've got this Jesus thing I need to try for real, for real. I have a slightly different experience to my brother, because he got baptized the day after me. Apparently I won him for Christ. I don't know how true that is. He can answer that. But yeah. So but when I was growing up, I didn't want to be like him because he was weird. He kind of got the sanctification thing straight away. So he was always on this separation from the world. And when you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, I can remember, for example, 1998. I don't want to get no one to sin now. Drew Hill, These Are the Times, are on TV, and I'm watching it, and I'm loving the song. Because I'm a musician. He's like, "What are you watching that for? Turn that off." And I'm like, "You're a weirdo. I'm not trying to be like you." So I was never trying to be like him. I was never trying to be on church like him. I'll play the drums and I'll come to church. I'm not trying to be like you. You're a weirdo. Like, you're not cool. And so, for me, in the past it's how to grow, but I never felt the need to be anything that I wasn't. And maybe that's just the kind of character I have. I never felt the need to pretend. I never felt the need to put on a show. I came as I was, and that's who I was. So I never felt that pressure to pretend. And I never felt any better than anyone, because my dad is the type of person where you don't feel like you're special. I mean, it just doesn't happen. Like we was discussing the other day, like birthdays and GCSEs and graduation, well done, but there's no like big fuss. That's just maybe culture, I don't know. But we were never made to feel like we were better than any other family. So I never felt that, like, you know, I was better than anyone.
I thought we were made to feel less.
Yeah, because our dad spent more time with other people and their children than us, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
So we were never, you know, and for example, silly example, but when you're a child, I always wanted Sky because I wanted to watch football. No, you're not getting it. We don't need it. So I never felt like I had more, because other children had Sky. Like, we did not get Sky. So it's like, there's no way I'm going to come in church with my chest puffed out. All I know is that convocation, if I go to the kitchen, Sister Johnson going to give me my dinner first. So that's the biggest advantage I had. Like, other than that, you're the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
But the biggest impact, like I said, is the way they lived and they treated people. And they treated people who, like I said, didn't deserve to be treated that way, in my opinion. And so I'm like, this God is real. So,
and I think one of the advantages I can think of is like real men and women of God from around the world coming to your house.
Yes.
Like, you getting to sit around and listen to like a Bishop Evans. I don't know if you know Bishop Evans, man, but like you start having those guys and you're in proximity of people, and like our parents, I probably speak for all our parents, are seriously on it. They don't watch TV. They don't know us on TV very much. Well, not saying not my dad. You sit down around these older men, and they are going hard into the scriptures, and they are dealing, you know, tackling with difficult areas. And I'm just sitting there. I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. This is deep. So I think that's always been a blessing. I remember an apostle from Jamaica coming over, and he was staying in my dad's room. Like, this guy was, I mean, people were just getting healed all over our church when he came. So he was just an amazing guy, but I wasn't saved at that time. And my older brother also wasn't saved, still isn't praying for him. And we walk into the bedroom to tell him goodbye because we're going off to school and we're not going to see him when we get back. And he looks at us, and then he starts to read us. And he starts to prophesy to us. He said to me, "Oh, you got the face of a politician." I don't know how that's going to manifest, but we'll see. But then he said to my brother, "You're going to serve the Lord one day." And I thought, this man's a joker. Like, he's trying to think we're going to get saved. That time I idolized my brother. I wanted to be my older brother. And so I walked out the room, and I was like, he said, "Yeah, he thinks we're going to get saved." And I looked up at my brother, and he had tears in his eyes. So I'm like, oh, something's happening to you. But just those little things, I just, you know, because God is real and the kingdom of God is real, I find that's a real privilege. Some of the disadvantages, I think in our home, I was very missionary, very, you know, done a lot of traveling, very much loves people, and we can take from that. And I think in all things that God has maybe supplied any deficit that we might have had, because he wasn't away from my home because he was gambling. He wasn't away from home because he was out at nightclubs. Like he was ministering to people, and I still believe in family first. I believe in all these things. But when I look at my life today and I say, God, I didn't suffer actually. You know, you only think that maybe some of that absence is an issue when you look at how much other people have their parents around. But I really do thank God in all of that He somehow has made up for any of the absences that we may have had. And I think, you know, we've got older parents, so there may be sometimes cultural differences which are not just a product of church, it's a product of being born in Jamaica in the 50s and the kind of parenting style you had. So I think sometimes as well as children, we've got to be quite forgiving. And I think as you get older in Christ, you become more forgiving, more understanding of, actually sometimes I was treated that way because that was just a personal deficit. That's something that they didn't really develop very well, and we've all got our weaknesses, right? But yeah, all in all, never really was made to feel special. We were generally made to esteem other people, you know, from sitting around the table and, you know, my mum's put on a big feast for the visiting ministers, and you want to grab your food first, innit? You want to get the macaroni and all that, you know. But it's not actually, you know, I guess we'll eat first, and you learn to serve other people. You learn how to, you know, be hospitable. So I think, all in all, I thank God for it. I think sometimes people look in on the outside and think privilege. Maybe in some churches they do have it, but our houses are under a great deal of pressure. Getting up in the middle, getting phone calls in the middle of the night to come and fix up. And my dad is such a kind guy, and he's a kind of jack of all trades. So he's getting called to fix people's boilers, and, you know, my lights have gone out and stuff. So he's like the guy that was just literally doing everything for people and a real shepherd. So I thank God for being brought up under that kind of service.
I would say one thing I've found it's made me in latter years, especially as my parents are aging, is that the foundation and how I've been raised has made me very protective of them. Because I just feel like they've invested so much, they gave so much, they sacrificed so much. As Michael said, for people who, you know, didn't reciprocate that. And, you know, we've had church storms where half the church gets up and walk out. And the only people left standing are you and your house. And we've had to stand and we've had to stay. And because I've seen that, I've lived through it with them, now that they've come to older age, I'm saying to myself, no, you need to sit back and relax and let me take the strain. Let the church take the strain. I'm very protective over them. There are certain things I said to them, listen, once you not clear tea, sit. Time out for you. Not because I'm making you redundant or you haven't got anything to give, but I'm just saying that, you know, enjoy the fruit of your labor now. You know, let someone else take the strain. And I believe that with my whole heart, that I am there. You know, I was the last child, and I was born to them in later years, and I believe that was by the will of God, because I think God plants us with our parents for a reason. And that, for me, I just feel this real onus and this sense of responsibility that you've done for the ministry. Now it's my turn to reward you by carrying on and picking up where you left off, and, you know, very protective over them. There are times when I say, no, I'll do it. Not because I feel I can do it everything and I know it all, but just because I think, you know, you've done enough.
That's a real blessing.
That for me is kind of twofold as well, because then on top of that you develop a sense of responsibility with your church as well.
Definitely.
For example, I know for a fact if someone says to me, oh, can you come and play at this church on a Sunday, I'm like, nope, can't do it, because I know I'm needed in my local church. And there's some instances wherein, you know, someone's calling the pastor to do something, and I'm like, no, you go and, like, you know, you go and sit down, I'll take care of this. And you begin to develop, it's almost like you're developing aspects of being a pastor, because you feel like, you know, fair enough, there's probably an assistant pastor, however, your household is also assistant pastors. My sister in particular, Rachel, she is very, very protective of my parents, very protective, to the point where if someone comes to my parents with a problem, she wants to know, is it something that I can deal with? And she tries to relieve that burden as much as possible. But then the flip side to that is that you find that with some pastors' kids, and I know this has certainly been my experience, where your parents are very forgiving and, you know, they accept the hurt, but then they kind of move on and they continue to love this person. God's still working on us. So there's been, I can certainly testify where there's been situations wherein my parents have been hurt and they've been able to move beyond it, but it took me a bit longer. To the point where you would see this person at maybe a national meeting and your parents would greet them with a smile and you could see the love in their eyes. You had to walk to the cafeteria and like excuse yourself on the situation. And I've certainly experienced that where my parents have been very forgiving, but I'm still dealing with that hurt.
I think that exposure, how much exposure we get to what's going on in church is also an issue that, you know, pastors and leaders have to really guard against. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Some things happen in the public domain. Some things happen very openly. But I think sometimes the younger we are, the less we see, the better. In terms of troubles with our parents. I'm gonna.
That make me never wanna go to church again.
I'm going to hand over before I get myself in trouble because there's another part on it that really grates me, and it's about understanding what the church is supposed to be doing. That for me is key, because a lot of the time church is essentially a social club and it's just a thing that we do on Sunday, and as a result, when you start talking about ministry, you start thinking about my Sunday job. So if you're saying, you're going to minister on this day, okay, cool, that means I'm the preacher for today. And we have this hierarchy set up because church is its own culture in itself, it's its own social circle. But it never stems beyond Sunday, it never stems beyond those four walls. So as a result, the church, what it's supposed to be doing, gets neglected, but Sunday's lit.
There was a time I didn't care what the preacher had.